My anger seems to derive from situations by which I feel out of control. My oldest one started dating last year, and they invited this guy over to have Sunday lunch with us. And I don't know what to do with the kid. I don't like him. In fact, I'm angry at this kid because this kid might be the one that pulls my kid away from me eventually. In my childhood, every time I had seen anger displayed, it was always destructive. If my dad got angry, then he was in a drunken state, and he was could be pretty violent. I think that's probably some of the root of the anger. Never felt maybe accepted, or felt there were some unjustified physical situations that I felt was kind of abusive. I'm not a rageaholic. I don't shout, I don't scream and throw things. That's not the way I deal with anger. I stuff it, I pout, I avoid, I move away from people. But now as I'm dealing with my daughters, I'm seeing some of my dad's reactions come out of me. I don't physically abuse my kids, but I have some of the same attitudes that he does now. I think the thing I have avoided for years from him is the very same thing I'm doing myself. And so at 30, I became aware that I really had an intense hatred, dislike, anger, bitterness towards my father. Now all of a sudden this garbage that's been down at the bottom, pressed down, is beginning to seep up, and no matter how many lids you put on it, it's still coming up.
I'm Willy Welch. This is my wife, Wendy. Welcome to the Survival Guide for Adults.
Today we're going to be discussing anger. You know, there really are a lot of angry people out there today.
There sure are. Take a drive down the freeway. I think that's where they congregate.
Oh, anger is a real problem on the roads and in the home. You know, I hate it when I snap at the kids, and I don't like it when we get angry with each other either.
Well, I don't make you angry, do I?
Oh, no. You know, just sometimes a little cranky or grouchy, maybe irritable and annoyed and really testy.
You know what really gets me is when somebody doesn't leave an answer on your answer machine.
Traffic. People who do not follow the law, I don't know, it's just that little thing, and it just drives me crazy.
Somebody behind you comes up behind you, starts flashing their high beams like you're some idiot.
I mostly get angry when I'm treated with disrespect.
My kids make me angry most every day.
I'm a very emotional person. If somebody hurts my feelings, you know, that kind of makes me angry.
Being late upsets me.
One thing that really irritates me is when somebody says they're going to call you, promises, and they don't call.
Well, I think just dealing with people in general, just thank you for laughing. That makes me very angry.
We all get angry.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of stuff like, since God is love, and anger is the opposite of love.
Then anger is wrong.
Yeah, or anger is the same as hate.
Or a person who doesn't look or sound angry doesn't have a problem with anger.
Yeah, well, I know that's not true, because even when you're trying to not look angry, you do this little thing with your mouth. Yeah, like that, that's it.
I think we ought to introduce our expert.
Okay. Dr. Norman Wright is the best-selling author of many Christian books on the family, such as The Power of a Parent's Words. And he also co-wrote an excellent book on anger called When Anger Hits Home.
What's the first thought that comes to mind when you hear the word love? Perhaps it's a special person you love and you know loves you. Most people associate love with good feelings, such as happiness, comfort, delight, and joy. Now, what's the first thought that comes to your mind when you hear the word anger? Is it your mom or dad yelling at you when you were a child? Is it your child spilling milk for the 27th time that day? Both love and anger are emotions. Both love and anger were created by God. Both love and anger are talked about in the Bible. Yet love is viewed as a positive emotion, and anger is viewed as a negative emotion. So we're left with misconceptions like anger and love just don't mix, or nice people don't get angry. Let's look at 4 facts that will help us understand anger and get rid of these myths. The first fact is this: anger is a God-given emotion. There are numerous references in Scripture to God's anger, and because we were made in His image, we have anger. If God displays anger, the emotion itself cannot be wrong. But when we allow our anger to get out of control, it can lead to aggressive behaviors that are inappropriate, destructive, and even deadly. The next fact is, anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is rarely the first feeling that comes in a situation. It's a warning signal telling us that something is not right. We may be hurt, our rights have been violated, or we've recognized an injustice. Anger tells us that there is something in our life that needs to be addressed. But when we ignore the signal of anger, it can deteriorate into bitterness, resentment, hatred, or even escalate into aggression and violence. The third fact is, anger is difficult to admit to yourself and others. Admitting our anger can make us feel ashamed or embarrassed, maybe even spiritually immature. We'd rather say we're irritated, annoyed, tense, or fed up. Some people display their anger in criticism, others with silence or intimidation. Some become depressed, others gossip and blame. Whatever you call it, you're angry. And last, anger is a frequently felt emotion. Several studies suggest that most people experience some form of anger at least 8 times a day. In the Old Testament alone, anger is mentioned 455 times, and 375 of those references deal with God's anger.
I don't like to admit that I'm angry. I'd say I was cross or cranky. But I know who I'm angry at.
With whom I am angry, not who.
Whatever. If anger is a warning signal, what is it warning us of?
Of what is it warning?
You are beginning to annoy me.
Angering.
Angering?
Me and my mom got into a fight about a week or so ago, and I have a bad habit of letting things get to me and bother me and keeping them bottled up inside till I blow up. She always told me that I was an accident, I was unplanned, pretty much wasn't wanted. And she told me that if they would have had abortions legally when she got pregnant with me, I wouldn't be here. It just felt like she was just turning her back on me, like I was useless and worthless. Like I wasn't important to anybody and there was no need for me. Still, every once in a while when me and my mom get into a fight, that's the first thing I throw back in her face.
Karen's anger comes from low self-esteem. Karen's mother made a habit of attacking her daughter, making her feel useless and unwanted. Now Karen is a woman lashing out in anger herself. Karen's story also illustrates another cause of anger: childhood experiences. How she was treated earlier explains her anger today.
Sometimes I come home, like I said, if the chores are not done and I come home already tired from the day, I find myself already just running off at the mouth.
I've learned that more likely to get angry if you're tired or hungry or have a headache.
When my job stresses me out, then I react to a lot of things, smaller issues.
It is surprising how many of us underestimate the importance of our health habits. When you don't get sleep, you don't eat right, exercise, or take care of yourself, it's easy to let your emotions rule. Anger may also come as a result of injustice. Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and especially Jesus are all examples of those who became angry at the unfairness around them. They also provide examples of ways in which the energy from anger can be used for good.
And I see myself as an angry person when I'm on the road. It makes me mad simply on the fact that I think, hey, these people could kill me and they wouldn't care. I mean, at 55, somebody cuts me off, I feel like my hair stands straight up and I get mad. I turn into like Godzilla behind the wheel. I holler, my blood rushes, and I turn red. So people usually know I'm pretty upset. I get scared when I see something like that happen. and I think that they're gonna hurt me or injure my family.
Mike gets angry because he's just plain scared. Fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of some threat. It can be physical danger or the fear of something like a new situation. We want to take things into our own hands. Most people find it easier to feel angry than fearful.
You know, if at work, if somebody's not handling a customer just exactly the way I think they should, I get upset. If they don't use the terminology I think they should, that bugs me. You know, it's not they're not handling a customer right, it's just not the way I think it should be. And sometimes I have a problem with wanting everybody to conform the way I am.
We would have arguments and disagreements, and so communicating between the two of us was almost fruitless. It was an argument, something to hurt one another because you were both angry and frustrated, but nothing ever got accomplished out of it because we didn't really communicate on the same level. I don't want to live like this. I am so uncomfortable and so angry, and I have nothing to say to him anymore. Nothing. Nothing but anger comes out between us, and that feeling in the pit of your stomach of, gee, I really want to get back at him. It's just, it takes everything, and it affects everything. I don't want to face the rest of my life this way.
Whether it's on the job, as with James, or in a marriage like Lou's, conflict is a normal part of any relationship. It just means that someone has a different value or opinion than you do. The problem comes when we view differences as an attack rather than listening and understanding the other person's position. Now in marriage, when two people live together constantly with vulnerability and closeness, the potential for anger is enormous. But anger doesn't have to kill a marriage. Anger can actually show that we still care about our partner. Lou's anger is telling her that she is alive and well and wanting to have something better in the relationship.
I don't foresee a reconciliation at all. He's found somebody else, and I'm learning to deal with that. She was a very close friend. That was difficult to deal with. There was a lot of anger there, because she and I were still talking at one time after he left, and when I realized what was going on, I cut off all ties. There were problems, but there had been problems for several years, and we'd been to counseling, and I had tried to get him to go back, and he refused. So when he said he wanted to leave, and then he immediately said he wanted a divorce, I was really kind of taken aback, but not totally surprised. I was really betrayed. Like I said, she was a good friend of mine. In fact, she was pretty much like a sister. We did things together constantly. We confided in each other, so I felt like I had just handed her this open book about my life, and she took it and ripped all the pages out and threw it back in my face and laughed and said, "Ha, you know, I have it now, you don't." She knows my life inside and out. And so I kind of feel like I'm trapped in the sense that she could easily say, "Come live with your dad and I, and you won't ever have to worry about dealing with your mother." I was so confused because she was married, and I thought, how can her husband even allow this to happen? And here I had allowed it to happen and not paid attention to what was going on. And I was angry with myself and angry with her because I felt like I had sat here and said, "Okay, do it. Just take it all from me."
It's tragic that so many marriages have ended in divorce. But whatever caused the divorce, Jamie's anger is not focused on her husband in this story. Jamie's anger is caused by hurt. She feels betrayed by a friend who would have a relationship with her ex-husband. Hurt, like fear, is a very uncomfortable emotion. We feel hopeless and helpless. So we often turn to anger to find the energy to protect ourselves and to build a wall against further hurt.
Wow, Wendy, that's quite a list.
But you know what, Willie? We haven't even covered the #1 cause of anger.
What makes me angry most is probably just maybe frustration with myself.
For me, it seems like when one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
If I can't, if the pair of socks that I was intending to wear aren't available, or if something around the house isn't, the lawnmower won't start, that kind of thing. That's really what gets me frustrated.
I'd say most of the times when I get angry, it's because I've put a lot of effort into doing what I needed to do and someone else didn't.
I feel like I'm constantly, giving in. Like I tell him to do something in particular, and he never will do it the first time I tell him.
We just got married 2 months ago, and I was so excited when we finally got engaged, and I started making all the plans, and then all of a sudden everybody doesn't like them. And it's like my parents didn't trust me, his parents didn't trust me or us, and it was just so frustrating.
Frustration. It's the #1 cause of our anger. We tend to become frustrated when people don't live up to our expectations, when things don't go as we planned, or when life doesn't seem fair. It looks like just about everyone and everything can frustrate us. You may not always be able to prevent the irritant from occurring, but if you deal with your frustration before it ignites into anger, you can keep yourself from exploding with heated words. Plan in advance what you can say to the other person or situation when you begin to feel frustrated. Remind yourself to slow down and gain control. One way of handling your frustration is to talk with someone about your situation. Someone who will check up on you, pray with you, or just sit and listen. And sometimes you'll have to give permission for the frustrating event to occur. I'm not suggesting that you just give up and allow other people to do anything they want to do, but with everyday situations that are more frustrating than dangerous, challenge yourself to quit fighting and go with the flow. All right, now let's think of a time when you were angry. Where did that anger come from? And how did you react when you got angry? We're going to take a moment for you to stop the tape and discuss these 2 questions.
Okay, we're back. Hopefully you've discussed how you express your anger. Willie, we all know how you react when you get angry. It's that lip thing. Now let's listen to how other people react.
Oh, hold it in. Definitely hold it in.
I'd say, "You're upset with me." "Oh no, I'm not upset." And then I would find out 3 days later he was upset.
I just hold it in, go about my business, and try and avoid conflict.
I keep it all to myself. I wish for a dog or a cat or something I could kick most days when I come home.
I feel it inside and I'm angry inside, but I don't blurt things out.
I hold mine in until the last minute, and then I just burst. I just start crying and let it all out at once. I don't know any other way.
For too long, I have had the idea that anger is always inappropriate for a Christian. And so I didn't find ways, I didn't know ways to express anger appropriately. The idea for me had always been, don't ever express it. Anytime you do, you're a bad boy. I began to burn out, began to experience various periods of depression. It grabbed me around the throat and said, "You're not going to do anything else but be depressed. You don't see anything good that you are doing. And even when people tell you you are, it doesn't matter." For example, I love my wife as much as any man could possibly love his wife. And in those times to say, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to have any relationship, I'm not worthy of being loved by my wife. When that begins, at least in my life, anger seems to follow along very quickly. I'm angry with myself. I may even be angry at God. I may be angry at the world in general. It's as if I'm so angry at the way things are not coming together in my life. Well, I'll just reject all of it. I'll just do something stupid, something that I know God wouldn't like.
Anger. Turn it outward too much, and it destroys others. But turn it inward too much, and it destroys you, often through depression. Do you suppress your anger? Do you try to achieve harmony with others by ignoring your own feelings? And then, like Jerry and the others, you end up being an inward reactor. And in time, inward reactors become bitter and resentful. If we attempt to bury our anger, it's possible the effects of our suppressed anger will bury us. And when the anger does flow, it may be in the form of physical illness or even violence. But that's not the only style of anger.
I'll unload on my wife, and then I'll go, whew, and then she'd be like, and then I'll say, what's for dinner?
I snap. I mean, very short answers and very insensitive. It's just, boom, this is how it is.
If somebody's here, I pretty much take it out on them.
Well, I yell, there's stuff that goes flying, there's a lot of things get broken too.
There are times when I'm the sacrifice. She lets me have it. Yeah, she just unloads on me.
And there had always been verbal violence and verbal abuse, I guess you'd call it. And a little stress and a lot of strain in the home and trying to walk on eggshells all the time.
I take it out on other people. I scream and I just want to be by myself, and they know when I'm having problems and they clear, but that's what I do.
When you're angry, do you clear the room with your outburst of temper? Do you bulldoze everyone else's feelings? If so, then you're an outward reactor. In addition to hostility and rage, the outward reactor may use teasing, sarcasm, criticism, and a judgmental attitude to show their anger. The Apostle James describes the impact of these missiles. The human tongue can be tamed by no man. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Now notice that both styles, inward and outward, are reactors. Both styles involve an automatic reaction to some real or perceived problem. But both styles are negative. Let me take just a moment to comment about abusive behavior. The home has become a tragic setting for emotional and physical abuse. If you find yourself crossing that line, or you yourself are the victim of abuse, please go for help immediately. Being abused and abuse of others are not situations that you can handle alone. Now, fortunately, there is a third option, the controlled response. This style is not an automatic reaction, but a way of responding that allows us to be angry and sin not, as the Scripture commands.
I'm still wrestling with what it means to express anger appropriately, but I've learned a lot about that and try to do so.
I think there are times when we need to be angry and stand up for what's right and what's good, and sometimes you do help each other by saying, I'm mad at you because you done that.
God has used my wife a lot to show me how to handle anger properly because she's more of a confronter. So with her ability and her attitude and her philosophy of handling anger, it's just let's open it up, let's deal with it. It's going to be uncomfortable for both of us for a while. But after we're through with it, then everything's back on key and we're better off for it.
To go from being a reactor to a controlled responder, we need more than a strong desire and good intentions. We need a plan. You can use these 4 steps to make our God-given emotion of anger work for you rather than against you. First of all, recognize your anger style. The best time to begin to deal with anger is before you get angry. You can learn from your past reactions. What is the pattern? How do you express your anger? Is it inward or outward? What have you tried that doesn't work? Then admit your anger and take responsibility. We can either allow the emotion of anger to dominate us, or we can, with the help of the Holy Spirit, choose to control our expression of the anger. One of the best ways to make sure you stay in control is to take time to process your anger. Delay your action. Next, you must identify the cause of your anger. Are you really fearful, hurt, frustrated? Or is it a false alarm? Have you misinterpreted a situation? If we allow God to help us identify the root cause of our anger, we are much more likely to make a change. The fourth step is critical. Be a controlled responder. Once you identify the cause of your anger, you may decide that there's no need to respond. Either the anger is a false alarm, or it's a situation that you can't control or influence. To get it off your chest, so to speak, you could write an angry letter, read it out loud in a room by yourself, and then throw it away. Now, if your answer is to confront, your goal should be to communicate your anger in such a way that the other person knows that they are still valuable and important in your eyes. Now, stay with me here. I'll give you 3 tips on how to confront. First, don't overreact. Listen and ask questions. Find out what the problem is. Don't approach with the finger wagging, you this and you that. Second, forget the past. When you dredge up past mistakes, they'll just tune you out. And third, be specific. Forget the tirade, the lecture. Make the expression of your anger accurate and to the point. Not several points, but 1 point. Remember Dwayne, our first story? Dwayne felt rejected and abused by his alcoholic father. He can't change his childhood or his father's behavior. What can he do?
Here about 4 years ago, I tried to express my anger to him as far as not to lambaste him. I always knew that was not going to cut it because he'd just get defensive and try to defend his actions or whatever. But I came across just from asking questions, Dad, why? Why did you do this and why did you do that? How do you talk to somebody? How do you work through issues with someone who doesn't want to work through them, who's still in denial at 60 years of age? So I invested into his life, and there was a real appreciative spirit on his part, and I came away feeling better. Even though he still didn't make a move towards me, I felt comfortable in making a move towards him this time. So that was one of the things that has changed just recently, that I'm now going into it with a different attitude from me.
Dwayne confronted his father. No apology was offered, and no issues were resolved. But Dwayne made the choice to forgive his father and not let anger destroy his own life. You have to move on even when there is no resolution or the person is no longer around. When you go through these steps in your own life, ask yourself, what worked, what didn't, and then how would you like to see yourself respond the next time? Remember that change takes time and often involves setbacks. It's helpful to memorize Scripture. I like Proverbs 16:24. He who is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who is hasty of spirit exposes and exalts his folly. When our emotional patterns are influenced by the promises and principles of God's Word, we will still have problems, but those problems will not dominate nor devastate us. Rather, they'll be able to be used of God to help us develop into the man or the woman of His design. Just take a look at Jamie now.
What was important was making sure the kids were okay, making sure that they were okay with the situation, and making sure that they were happy. And so once I decided that that was much more important, I think my anger just kind dispersed itself into being a lot more positive for them. In fact, the other day my daughter said, "But you know, Mom, we have a pretty good family." So, that made me feel like I had done what I was supposed to do. And that, as frustrated as I was feeling at the time, that frustration wasn't even worth thinking about after what she had said. It made me feel like I had done what has been best for them, and that they are going to survive a lot better than I did.
You know, I really like the way Jamie took a bad situation and turned it around. She's dealing with her anger. That really makes life better for her children. Willie.
What? Okay, you want to know what I got from the show?
Right.
Okay, I know. We all know that I'm an inward reactor. That's my anger style.
Yeah, that lip thing.
Yes. And I can admit my anger, and I can figure out what's causing the anger, and then I have a chance to be a controlled responder.
Yes.
What did you learn about confront?
Don't overreact, be specific, and forget the past.
That's it.
So, no more lip thing.
Wow.